Hello students, welcome to BioBytes. In today's video, we're going to talk about heterotrophic nutrition from chapter 6, Life Processes. Looking at the definition of heterotrophic nutrition. So heterotrophic nutrition is a mode of nutrition in which one organism consumes another organism for food. Since heterotrophs do not have the ability to manufacture their own food, they have to consume external organism for their food source. So there are three common types of heterotrophic nutrition: saprophytic, parasitic, and holozoic. Saprophytes are organisms which have digestive enzymes inside their body. So they secrete it on the body of the external organism which they're consuming, and these enzymes will start digesting the food externally. Once this process is over, the digested food will then be ingested inside the body of the saprophyte. Common examples of saprophytes include mushrooms, bread molds, and other common fungal organisms. Parasitic nutrition is when an organism which is called the parasite will attach itself to the body of an organism which is called the host. Now, the host will be producing all the food substances, so the parasite will just derive nutrition by absorbing the digested food which the host is producing. Common examples of parasites include many plants and animals, such as leeches, ticks, mites, etc. The last type of heterotrophic nutrition is called holozoic nutrition. Holozoic, the word means to ingest through the mouth. So all the common organisms that have a mouth-like structure and ingest their food through the mouth and then digest the ingested food inside of the organisms are called holozoic organisms. Human beings fall under this category. Next, we're going to look in detail at how amoeba performs nutrition. So amoeba is a unicellular organism, and the mode of nutrition it follows is called holozoic nutrition. So we can break down the digestive process into different steps: ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and egestion. So the process of ingestion involves amoeba identifying a food particle in its environment. So once it does this, it puts out finger-like projections of its plasma membrane, which are called pseudopodia. So it will engulf this food particle and bring it inside its body into the food vacuole. So the food vacuole is a structure which has the food particle inside it. The next process of digestion involves amoeba secreting the digestive enzymes onto the food vacuole and breaking down this food particle into smaller, simpler pieces. So following this, absorption takes place. Now the digested food is now absorbed from the food vacuole and sent to all parts of the body which are located on the cytoplasm. Now assimilation involves using up the digested food for energy. So now amoeba might have many processes going on. It might need the energy for any cellular repair, for growth, for energy, and it will use this digested food for all these processes. The last step involves egestion of the undigested waste. So now amoeba will form a vacuole which contains all the undigested waste which it is collected from across the body, and it will throw out this waste which is inside the vacuole out of its cell membrane, thereby egesting it. Next, we're going to look in detail at how human beings perform digestion. So when we look at the entire digestive tract, the human digestive tract, it is referred to as the gastrointestinal tract, the GI tract, the alimentary canal, etc. So there are lots of glands associated with digestion. We can split them up into two main groups: the main glands and the associated glands. The main glands are called so because they actually have food in them. So food actually passes through these organs as digestion takes place. Hence, they are referred to as the main glands. The associated glands do not actually have any food which is undergoing digestion in them. However, they are very important to the digestive process because they are going to have important substances like enzymes, etc. So, they are quite prevalent and important to digestion. So, the main glands are the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestine, whereas associated glands are the salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, and the appendix. Now we're going to go on to digestion in the region of the mouth in detail. So the mouth has a lot of structures like the teeth and tongue, which are basically going to help in breaking down of the large food particles. So human beings ingest food through the mouth. The teeth is going to help in two main processes, chewing and grinding of the food. So the tongue is going to help moisten the food by rolling it, and it is going to mix it with the enzymes present in the mouth. So the tongue also has a lot of taste receptors through which we can identify tastes like saltiness, sweetness, pungent tastes, etc. So human beings have 3 pairs of salivary glands in the body. So the salivary glands are going to secrete a substance called saliva. So saliva mainly consists of the enzyme salivary amylase, which is also called ptyalin, and mucus. So salivary amylase is involved in the digestion of the food group, which is carbohydrates. So in the region of the mouth, only carbohydrates are being digested. So complex carbohydrates like starch are going to be broken down into smaller carbohydrates like the disaccharide form of maltose. So this brings us to the end of digestion in the mouth. So now the food is going to proceed on towards the next organ, which is the esophagus, otherwise known as the food pipe. So in the region of the esophagus, there is no digestion going to take place. So it is just a transport pipe which carries food from the mouth to the stomach. So how it pushes the food from the mouth to the stomach is by a series of rhythmic contractions and relaxations of the muscular walls. So this process or this function, this movement is called peristalsis or peristaltic movement. So the mouth contains food which is called the bolus. So the bolus is going to be moved through peristalsis from the mouth to the stomach. So before we move on to digestion in the stomach, let's briefly look at what are dental caries or cavities and how they occur. So if we are not in the habit of regularly brushing our teeth, the food particles which are being ground out by the teeth are going to stick to the upper part of the teeth, especially in the molars and premolars, because they have a lot of grooves in them. So once this happens, bacteria will start getting attracted to these food particles and they will come and settle on top of the teeth. So when they digest these food particles, they will release acids which will go on to the enamel of our teeth and damage them, causing holes or cavities. So how do we prevent dental cavities? Regular brushing in the morning and night will make sure there is no bacterial buildup. Next, we're going to move on to digestion in the stomach. So the walls of the stomach are quite muscular. So they also help in churning the food, thereby breaking them down into smaller particles. So when food is physically broken down, it is called mechanical digestion. When it's digested by enzymes, it's called chemical digestion. So the walls of the stomach are going to secrete substances like mucus, hydrochloric acid, and the enzyme pepsin. So the mucus layer basically protects the inner lining of the stomach from the action of hydrochloric acid. So hydrochloric acid is going to perform two main functions. One, if any microbes are entering the body through the region of the mouth, because we are constantly opening our mouth while consuming food, the hydrochloric acid kills all the microorganisms. The second and more important function is it provides an acidic medium for the action of pepsin. Now, pepsin is an enzyme which requires an acidic pH, without which it will not be activated. So once this is provided by HCl, pepsin is now ready to digest proteins. So it breaks down larger proteins into smaller polypeptides and peptones. So the food inside the stomach, which is now started to break down and become acidic, is called the chyme. So now we're going to see what is acidity. So if we periodically skip our meals, like we skip breakfast and lunch, there is going to be accumulation of hydrochloric acid in our stomach because it is waiting for food to be digested. So if there is no food in the stomach, the HCl is going to stagnate there for a long period of time and slowly start breaking through the mucus layer, and it is going to damage the inner lining of the stomach. So this is known as acidity, and it may cause other type of symptoms like ulcers. So how to prevent acidity is to not skip any meals and follow a regular breakfast, lunch and dinner schedule. Now we'll move on to the most important organ in digestion, which is the intestine. So the intestine is divided into the small intestine and large intestine. The small intestine is where maximum amount of digestion is going to be taking place. So when we look at the small intestine, we can divide it into three regions: the duodenum, the jejunum and the ileum. So the walls of the duodenum are going to produce a substance called secretin. So food coming from the stomach is still acidic because it is mixed with HCl. So the enzymes in the small intestine prefer an alkaline environment to work in. So secretin provides this alkaline environment so that the food slowly starts to become basic. So the associated organs which are going to supply enzymes to the small intestine are the liver and the pancreas. So the pancreas are going to be secreting two enzymes, the pancreatic amylase and lipase, together called pancreatic juice. And a tube called the pancreatic duct is going to send it to the duodenum. Next, the liver is going to secrete the enzyme bile. And bile is going to come to the small intestine via the bile duct. So if large amounts of bile is produced and digestion is not happening in the small intestine, the bile can be stored in an organ called the gallbladder and periodically used as and when digestion is taking place. The other enzyme which is secreted by the walls of the duodenum itself is called trypsin. Now trypsin converts proteins into amino acids. Bile is called an emulsifier. Basically, it takes up larger fat globules and breaks it down into smaller particles so that the enzyme lipase can easily break it down into fatty acids and glycerol. Lastly, pancreatic amylase breaks down any carbohydrates and maltose into glucose. Now, the jejunum completes any leftover digestion. So all your food groups have been broken down into their smallest forms. You have amino acids, you have fatty acids and glycerol and glucose. So now the food moves on to the last part of the small intestine, which is the ileum, which has structures called the villi. So these villi have large finger-like projections and they have extremely large surface area. So this provides a lot of area for absorption. So all the digested food is completely absorbed by the villi and it is sent to the rest of the body through the transport system. Now the undigested waste moves on from the small intestine into the large intestine. So in the region of the large intestine, the water is reabsorbed from the undigested food and used for other purposes. Now the waste becomes semi-solid and it hardens up and it goes to the region of the rectum where it accumulates. Once enough waste is accumulated, it is sent out via the anal sphincter in the process called egestion. So with that, we have come to the end of the video. Please like it, share it, Comment down below if you want any other concepts to be covered, and don't forget to subscribe to BioBytes.